Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Hangout. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. Really excited to be going on today's virtual field trip. We are heading down to the Virginia Zoo in Norfolk, and today we're going to learn all about the beautiful birds. So we're going to gain a better understanding of the physical and behavioral adaptations that enable birds to survive in so many different habitats. Really excited today to be joined by Steph and Matt. They're going to take over for a bit before we meet some of our classrooms and launch into the Q&A. So Steph and Matt, it's so great to have you joining us live today. We're excited to meet some of the friends you have joining you.
They are excited too, and you may actually hear some of them in the background. So don't be alarmed if you hear lots of noises because our birds are very vocal today. So you might hear some of them before you get to see them. But as we said, we are learning about beautiful birds. And so there are some traits that make all birds the same, and that is that they are warm-blooded. So just like us, they are warm-blooded. All of them lay eggs, and all of them have some type of feather coating or feather covering. So Tia here is our first bird that you're going to meet. So I'm going to bring her a little bit closer. Sure.
Thank you. You want to see something creepy?
I can hear you. So and our Toko toucans is from South America, and she is one of the largest species of toucans. So considered one of the largest because of their very long beak and the beak to body size. So you can see that even though she is not a very large bird, she does have a very large beak. So she does use that beak in a variety of different ways. It is not a strong beak for something like defense, so she can't really protect herself with it. But what she is going to use it for is reaching for really high fruit that is hanging up in the trees, and then she's going to toss it back. So you might have just seen I gave her a piece of grape there. I'll see if she'll eat another one. And she's just going to throw the fruit right back into her mouth. So she's going to grab fruit off the tree. She's going to toss it back into her mouth. You might notice her tongue sticking out a little bit. That is that little feathery thing on the side. And her beak is kind of almost see-through. So you can kind of see when it's in the sun, you can almost see through her beak. Now, her main job in the rainforest is going to be as a seed disperser. So she eats lots and lots of different types of fruits. And then, of course, as she is flying from tree to tree or moving about the rainforest, sometimes they are going to poop. And when she goes to the bathroom, wherever she goes is where some new fruit trees might grow. So she's going to be able to help us grow our rainforests. These guys have something else pretty cool about them, and that is that they can see in ultraviolet colors. So where they can see more colors than we can, Tia here needs to tell how ripe a fruit is. So she can tell how ripe the fruit is by just looking at it because they show different varieties of color. And then she's going to pick the ripest fruit to be the one that she is going to eat. These guys live in groups, so they do fly around a little bit in their trees, but they can live in small groups up to about 6 birds. And they're going to kind of hang out together. Now, something really fun that they do, you saw how she was tossing the fruit back with her mouth, is that if there is a toucan out there searching for a mate, and say he finds a really pretty girl toucan and he's looking to see where she's at, he's going to throw fruit to her. So they're going to throw fruit back and forth so they can definitely catch their food and then toss. If she decides that she likes him too, she's going to throw the fruit right back. So she's going to kind of play with the fruit there. So that is one of the ways that they are going to use that. She's just kind of squirting some juice out of that. Now, she has some different feet. She has these feathers. She's got black feathers. She's got some red feathers on her tail. She's got some yellow feathers. And then she does have the colors around her eye. You can see the orange and the blue. And that's actually the color of her skin. So her skin is that color. But she has those different feathers. What they aren't made for is flying really long distances. So she's going to more hop from tree branch to tree branch. She's not going to fly a ton of distance. So usually she's going to stay just where her food is, and then she's going to kind of find a different tree to go to. She also doesn't have very strong feet. So I can hold her right here on my arm, and her feet are not super strong. So they're not really gripping too hard, and we don't have to worry about her scratching up our arms or anything like that. So her feet are not made for much more than just hopping from tree branch to tree branch. So now we said she is a South American bird, so she's found in the rainforest. We do have 2 other birds with us that are also found in the rainforest that you're going to get to meet next. So I'm going to take Tia off to the side, and you guys are going to get to see another feathery friend that has lots of bright colors on her.
All right, guys. So just like Tia, this is Billie Jean. She is a blue and yellow or blue and gold macaw. So they are also found in South America, and they do have very similar traits. they are very noisy as well. So you might hear her making some noise in the background, and we also have a friend for her behind you as well. So you might hear some other noises. But with macaws, they have zygodactylic feet. That's the big word for today. That just means they have 2 toes facing forward and 2 toes facing backwards. You can see if you could show. I want to see your feet. Good. And with that being said, that's just to hold onto the branch. Like Stephanie was saying with Tia, they hold onto branches, perches, anywhere that they can get to so they can kind of hang down and grab onto fruits or leaves, flowers, or even nuts. So Tia had a really long bill. It's very soft, basically just used for reaching things that are out of her grasp. As Billie Jean here has kind of a sharp pointed beak. She has a very big beak as well, if you can see. Very large beak, but has a very different type of adaptation for her because they would be eating nuts, just like she's eating right now. Tia had a very soft bill. She wasn't able to break nuts or anything like that, but as you can see, Billie Jean can plow through nuts real quick. They have a very strong bite, so they can get into the husks of thicker fruits, into the seed pods, and because of all those seed pods, just like Tia was a seed dispersal, so is a macaw. So they'll eat all those nuts, all those seeds. They'll fly around. And these guys are a little bit better at flying than a toucan would be. They can reach probably about 30 to 35 miles an hour when they fly. And when they do, they kind of cover a pretty good distance. And all those seeds, when they go to the bathroom, hit the floor and eventually grow up into plants, trees, anything kind of re-nourishing the forest floor. These guys are very, very smart. Like I said, we have a friend for Billie Jean just off camera here, and he's been trained for a lot of fun things. So I'll let Stephanie bring him over here. You can probably hear him in the background already. These guys are very social birds, so they like to hang out in big groups, and they are also very, very smart. They can learn how to do a whole bunch of cool things, and I don't want to take anything away from Stephanie, so she'll teach you guys what we've taught some of our macaws here at the zoo.
All right, guys. So this is Big Red. Big Red, can you say hello?
Hello.
Good bird. So he has learned how to say hello. So he knows a couple different more things than Billie Jean does. So they are very smart, as Matt said. Now, something different is that birds that are kept with us, parrots that are with us, are going to learn how to mimic, or they're going to learn how to speak things that we say. So you're not going to go out into the rainforest of South America and hear a whole bunch of birds yelling hello. That is just something that they do when they're in human care. So, yep. Are you a good bird? Yeah, you're a good bird. So he is going to learn different noises or different things. He can say hello. He can nod his head. Can you wave to everybody? Good bird, Big Red. And let's see, Big Red, what's this? Rawr. That's a rawr. But what is this? What is that? Cracker? That's a cracker, yes. So sometimes he gets a little camera shy and he likes to show off. Now you did hear him roar. Some of those things that he likes to do himself. You may have heard a boo in the background as you were hearing. He does kind of hide under his paper and say boo. Big Red, are you a lion? Nope, now you're not going to roar. Now he's just going to make me look like a fool because I'm going to just sit here and roar and he's not. Roar, roar, there you go. So they learn all these different things. Now, they're not going to repeat every word I say. So he's not going to say everything that I say. But if they learn things or they hear things fast enough or long enough, they're going to start to mimic those. So different things that they might mimic, because a lot of times people say hello. A lot of times they say their name. They heard a lot of Polly want a cracker, so that's why Big Red says cracker. And they will occasionally talk to each other. So sometimes they're going to make noises back and forth, and they can learn from each other. But Big Red here is one of our more show-offs that we have. So he likes to show off all his different behaviors. Now, these two were actually rescue birds for us. So Big Red and Billie Jean, we don't know how old they are because somebody had them as a pet and didn't realize they lived to be about 50 years old. So we're not sure how old they are, and he's a rescue. So we do want to make sure that if you want a macaw for a pet, or if you get a macaw for a pet, you know that they're going to live a very, very long time. So now you've met two birds that use their beaks for one thing. They're both covered in feathers, and they both have different types of feet. Now we have a very different type of bird coming up next. So I'm going to give this bird a big, wide move. Boop, can you say goodbye? There you go. Can you blow a kiss? Good bird. So Big Red's going to go off to the side, and we're going to bring our next bird in.
All right, guys. So like Stephanie said, this is a very different bird. So Harriet here is a Harris hawk. Now, Harris hawks are in the group that would be called birds of prey or raptors. The reason for that is they are very different. They have different adaptations compared to, say, a parrot like a macaw does. You know that those feet are used for grabbing on branches and hanging on things such as, perches or even cliff sides, as birds of prey like Harriet here use their feet to be hunting things. So being a bird of prey means that you're going to be eating other animals, whether those are rodents, small mammals, even other birds. And the possibility that they have doing that is just going to be all through their feet. So if you can see real carefully here, she has really sharp nails on those feet. They're also called talons. They're not called nails or anything like that. They're called talons because these guys have all their strength in their feet. Now with Tia and with the macaws that we had, you didn't have to wear a glove for them because they didn't really have strong feet. As Harriet here, you can see I'm wearing a glove. The reason for that is because Harriet, even though that she doesn't mean to hurt me, the way that she just stands on a glove is very, very, I guess, tight. As she kind of clenches onto your hand a little bit with those sharp talons, it creates a little bit of a layer of protection for us. So if you guys squeeze your fist as hard as you can, just give it a big squeeze, that's about 30 pounds of pressure per square inch. As Harriet here can do anywhere between about 300 to 400 pounds of pressure per square inch. And she's a pretty small bird. She only weighs maybe 2 pounds, if that. So she has a very different kind of attitude compared to parrots, that they'll be hunting with those feet. They'll be taking down animals that could be twice the size, if not even larger than she is. Now, also with birds of prey, you can see that their beak is a lot smaller than Tia's and the macaws. It has a nice little hook on it. The reason for that is because these guys, hunting and eating things, they need to be able to tear into their prey, and that beak kind of helps get through the flesh and all the other cartilage and everything that could be that they needed to get through to eat whatever they wanted to get out of that animal. Now, Harriet here, being a Harris hawk, is native to North America into Mexico, southwestern North America, I should say. She is a desert species, so these guys have some pretty cool adaptations that go along with that. Harris hawks are actually one of the only birds of prey that actually hunt in a pack together. They've actually been called the wolves of the sky because of that. They are a matriarchal society, which means that, sorry boys, but the girls are in charge. So Harriet here would definitely be the head honcho of her clan, her pack, and they actually hunt together. So usually birds of prey, like you can hear in our background, one of our other guys you'll meet pretty soon, they're solo. They're very, individuals that they'll just go out and they'll hunt and they'll take down their own prey. As with Harris hawks, they could be in groups of up to 10 individuals, and they kind of coordinate together like a wolf to take down whatever prey they're looking at. Harris hawks are also pretty cool in a way that they're from the desert, so there's not lots of trees and places to hide or perch up onto to get a surveillance of the area around them to figure out what food is where. So these guys will actually stand on a cactus, and because not all animals want to, stand on a prickly cactus, I wouldn't like doing that. It'll be the least dominant male of the group that'll be standing on the cactus, and then the next male will stand on top of that bird, right on the back shoulder blades here, and then another one on top of that, and another one on top of that, and at the very top, you'll have the head honcho, the female, that is looking around and figuring out what exactly she wants her clan to go around and take down for dinner that night. So it's a very interesting group dynamic that they have, being, able to figure out and kind of coordinate together to take down an animal. And these guys are also the only birds of prey that will hunt on the ground as well. So in the desert, you might have thorny brushes or bushes around. If a jackrabbit runs underneath those bushes, a Harris hawk will actually land on the ground and chase after it on foot. So then their prey doesn't get away just by being slippery and getting underneath a bush. So we do have another bird of prey, which I'm sure you guys can hear. He's a little bit bigger and a little bit more impressive than Harriet, only being 2 pounds here. So I will pass it back to Stephanie to check out our next guy, Carson.
All right, guys. So I'm sure you heard him in the background, and I'm sure everybody can tell what this is, and that is an owl. Carson here is a Eurasian Eagle Owl. You're probably going to see me feeding him while he's here in my glove. These guys are known as one of the largest species of owls in the world. So Carson has an impressive almost 5-foot wingspan. So if you could see all of me, about as tall as I And they are normally going to live in Europe and Asia, kind of more the colder mountainy areas. He does have fully feathered feet that you can see. He's got very, very strong talons. So these guys here, there's a lot of misconceptions about owls. Obviously, he's making lots of noise right now, but he is talking. He does hoo as well. But you can see him kind of turning his head. We'll see if he'll turn his head a little bit more. No, he's just going to look at different things. So Carson here can't turn his head a full circle. They can't turn their head all the way around. Because, of course, if you kept turning your head all the way around, it might start to pop off. So Carson can turn his head 270 degrees. So not a full circle, but almost all the way. The reason he can do that is because he has twice as many vertebrae in his neck as we do, and he doesn't have a shoulder bone. So he does not have that bone on his shoulders to stop him from turning his neck. Now, the reason they need to do that is because they're normally going to sit really quietly up in a tree and wait for their food to kind of run across. And then they're going to swoop down and they're going to grab it with those big, powerful feet. Now, you can see these big feathers that he has on the top of his head. Those are not actually his ears. What those are little feathers that he can make himself look like a dead tree branch. So if he's sitting up high in the tree, he can just kind of camouflage with all those feathers that he's covered in. And he has different variations of feathers. He's got down feathers. He's got thicker, broader feathers that he's going to have on the tips of his wings so that he can fly more. And then on those feathers on his wings, he also has, they have what's called serrated edges. And that is kind of like the bristles of a comb. And what that is that helps him to fly silently. So Carson here, if he swoops down on his prey, which can be anything from, say, a mouse or a rabbit, to they've even been known to take down even small deer up in the forests and up in the mountain areas, he's going to swoop down and they're never going to hear him coming. So he's got silent flight with all those feathers that he has. So he can fly around and not even make a sound. He also has really, really good vision, so he's going to use that vision to hunt, but he's going to use his hearing more. So he's got the hearing really, really well. They can even hear a mouse up to under about a foot of snow, so that's how strong their hearing is. Or if you had a mouse released in a completely dark room, an owl can find it. So they're going to be able to find those. So now we met lots of different types of birds today, as we called our beautiful birds. We had different birds of different colors. We have birds with different beaks. We have birds with different feet, but all of them have different things in common. So they all lay eggs. They all have feathers around their body, depending on what they use those feathers for, different types of flight or other things. And they are all warm-blooded. So even though all birds have those same characteristics, they are different. So we have variations in our birds, from our fruit-eating birds to our meat-eating birds, our birds of prey like Carson here. But we want to thank you guys for joining us to meet all of our beautiful birds today. And now I think we're going to turn it back over to you to see if you have any questions.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sharing all those beautiful birds with us. It's great to see so many different species and learn so much about their life habits. It's really, really cool. But now let's meet some of our classrooms. We've got a full house today with classrooms joining us from different locations across North America. So let's get started first. Let's go to Mr. Kant's group in Weatherford, Texas. Let's get their microphone turned on and see if they have a question about our beautiful birds today.
Okay.
We doing grade twos?
Hi. Hi.
All right, we've got a question.
Okay. Which birds eat food? Like food.
What do they eat for food?
Yeah. Today.
Carson likes to eat things like rats and mice and maybe small rabbits. Our macaws, who are also now in the background, they eat lots of different fruits and veggies. And then there are birds out there that eat different types of seeds too. So it all varies depending on the bird and what kind of beak they have and what kind of food is available. So our birds here today mostly eat either fruit or meat.
All right. Good question to get us started from Weatherford, Texas. Let's go now. Let's take a trip to Kalispell, Montana. We have a group of students joining us with Mrs. Landrum. Let's see if I can get their microphone turned on. There we go. Actually, Mrs. Landrum, you're just off my screen again. If you guys want to turn it on for me and say hi, then we'll steal a question.
Say hi.
Hi.
Who has a question?
I have one. How big can owls get?
So owls can be pretty big. Carson here is one of the largest owl species in the world. The only one that would be a little bit bigger would be the great gray owl. So Carson here, he's only 2 years old. So he might have a little bit of growing left to do, but when he stretches his wings all the way out as far as he can go, he gets about 5.5-foot wingspan to 6 feet. But different species kind of vary. You can have a tiny little screech owl who's about this big, and their wings only go about maybe a foot, 2 feet at most. But then you can also get up to that great gray owl, which would be about 8 feet in length altogether when they have their wings stretched fully out. So Carson, even though he looks pretty big, he's not that heavy. He's probably about maybe 3-4 pounds. So a lot of times owls look a lot bigger than they actually are. But Carson is actually one of the largest species in the world.
All right. Well, I want to give a quick shout out to Mrs. Damianako's class. They're joining us from Ottawa, Ontario, some grade 4s. If you guys want to, let me see, where's the class? There you go. Wave like crazy at the camera so we can see you. There they are. So their microphone's not working today, but they're going to send us in some questions via the blue chat sidebar. So I'll keep an eye out for those. But while we wait, let's go to Odessa. We're going to the United States. We're going to hang out with Mrs. Rodriguez's class. She's got some grade 5s with her. Let's get that microphone turned on. How are we doing, grade 5s?
Good.
Okay, go ahead.
How do y'all tame the birds?
So we don't tame them. So all of our birds were actually born in zoological care. So they are not birds that came out of the wild. We do have some birds that came out of the wild that were injured, because unfortunately there are a lot of injuries that happen to birds of prey. So we do work with them, but a lot of it is building a relationship with them. So they learn that they can trust us, that they are safe with us, and of course that their food comes from us as well. So the food is the main thing that we do to build a relationship. But we are just kind of working on that training. So we do everything with positive reinforcement. So basically you saw those macaws getting food as we were talking to them. You saw Carson getting food. You saw Tia throwing some grapes in her mouth. Every time they do something really good, we make sure we reward them. So we give them a reward every time that we work with them. Even just coming out maybe with us is a reward. So we just kind of work on building a relationship with them and making sure that they know that they are safe and that we can bring them their food.
Okay, good question. So we do have a lot of classrooms who are tuning in live on YouTube right now. So there's a chat sidebar on the right if you want to let us know where you're watching from and send us in a question. And in fact, I have one ready to go already. Some grade 4s are joining us from Muriel Dumont, and they're wondering if it's okay for birds to eat human food.
No, I would say not usually. By human food, we can also say, like Tia, she gets, peas and carrots and sweet potatoes, which we can eat. But if you mean things like potato chips and corn dogs and all these other things, no, it's not good for them. Their digestive tract's a lot different than ours, that they have to be able to have the right kind of nutrients coming into their body. They can get sick a lot easier, kind of like if we ate fast food all day, every day, only having cheeseburgers, our stomachs would feel terrible by the end of the day. So it's the same kind of thing where their body is made up differently than us, that we can't eat their kind of food and they should not be eating our kind of food. Where, I know you have pets at home and sometimes you give them a little bit of a treat or something like that. But overall, we don't give our guys anything other than, produce that we would eat, bananas and carrots, apples, sweet potatoes, those kind of things. But we don't give them anything that's junk food.
All right, perfect. Let's take a trip to our next classroom. Let's go to British Columbia this time. Grade 6s joining us in Prince George with Mrs. Caesar. Let's get their microphone turned on. How are we doing, Prince George?
Good. So my question is, what can we do to help the endangered species?
So there's lots of things that you can do to help different species. So one thing, like you met Carson, one of our owls here. So I said that a lot of times birds of prey do get injured. One of the main things is if people throw trash out their car windows, what happens is trash attracts rats and rats and mice attract birds of prey like our hawks and our eagles and our owls and our falcons. And so what happens is a lot of times birds end up getting hit by a car. So one thing that you can do is make sure that you hold on to your trash and dispose of it properly. So of course, that's one thing you can do. Also, if you tune into different things and learn about different species and other things that you can do. So you have probably local native species in all of your home areas. So kind of see what ways that you can help them. Always picking up trash, recycling. Those are little things, but you can also maybe help out at shelters or see if you can take donations to places where they can also use things to help care for our animals. If you want to add anything else?
I mean, overall, just be an advocate. Be someone that always speaks for the animals. They can't speak for themselves. So go to zoos, go to aquariums, learn as much as you guys can, and then, go to college, get a degree in something that's animal related and teach other generations about them. Spread the word about what's going on in the whole entire world, whether that's forest destruction or anything of that sort. One voice doesn't mean much, but when you all start grouping together, I mean, look at all these classrooms we have here. If you guys start telling your friends and their friends start telling their friends, we have this huge network of people, and then we can make a lot of things change if we get all together.
All right, an excellent point. So if you guys go home today and just tell one other person something that you learned today and they pass it on, it can have a really big impact. So that's awesome. Let's see. Let's go to Mrs. Rasiga's group. They're hanging out with us from Smooth Rock Falls, Ontario. So they didn't get any of that freezing rain today. Let's see how they're doing today. How are we doing, boys and girls?
Good. Good. Why are you feeding the owl with tweezers, but you're not feeding the other birds? I mean, you are feeding the other birds with your hands.
So one reason that we use our tongs to feed our owl is because owls close their eyes when they eat. So our fingers don't look much different than the mice that we're feeding them. So when they close their eyes, they just put their beak down and they look and see whatever they can grab. So that's one reason we use the tongs, because they also have a really sharp beak. So it might not hurt first time, but more times that you try to feed them, if they miss the food, a lot of times that might hurt us, but it's also safer to feed them with the tongs because they close their eyes. You might have noticed the little whiskers that Carson has kind of almost on the front of his beak. When they close their eyes, they actually use the whiskers or the feathers on the side of their beak to find their food. So a lot of times that's what they're going to be using, is more their senses versus actually looking where they're biting.
All right. Before we jump to our next classroom, I just want to give a quick reminder to Mrs. Damianakos' class. If you did type a question and you might not have hit enter, it hasn't come through the chat sidebar yet, but we'll keep an eye out for it. Let's go to Mrs. Walchuk's class. They're joining us from McBride, British Columbia. Got some grade 5, 6, and 7 students together. Let's get that microphone turned on. There we go. How are we doing, boys and girls?
Good. What does the coating on the bird's feathers do?
So if you saw with Carson, he basically had speckles of white, black, brown, a whole bunch of different types of colorations. And this is true for most other birds, except for the macaws. I'll get to them. But so with Carson, our Eurasian Eagle Owl, that's basically just for camouflaging. So if Carson was staying up in a canopy somewhere in the nice tree coverage, a predator or another bird of prey might be glancing over him instead of seeing that he's sticking out like a sore thumb, that, oh, you're just another piece of that tree. I don't need to come and attack you because I don't eat trees, kind of a thing. So it helps out with protection, that camouflaging. As with our macaws, they're brightly colored. That is not to blend in with tropical fruits and everything like that. It's actually for, thank you, Big Red, for mating and for attracting mates and different species of that sort. So the bright colorations could be either, stay away from me, I'm dangerous, or it could be, hey, I like you and you like me. Do you like what I'm wearing right now? Kind of a thing. So it attracts a mate, as a lot of the other ones, like Carson, would be camouflage, so then they stay away from other birds.
All right. So I do have a question from Mrs. Damianakos' group now. They sent it via the YouTube chat sidebar, and they're wondering about the biggest bird you have at the zoo and how much it weighs.
Yeah, we have ostrich.
We do have ostrich, which are, I'm sure you guys have seen them. They're more of a ground-dwelling bird. So they are, 200, 300 pounds about. They are all in Africa. You guys probably know what an ostrich looks like. And just to be, we can fit our birds on our arms and everything like that, just to kind of give you a little bit of a view of how big they are. We actually brought an ostrich egg with us. So this is an egg. So like you guys, when you wake up and you get eggs and bacon and all of that, those eggs, they're chicken eggs. They're, about this big, right? this is an ostrich egg. It's gigantic. So you can tell how big. I mean, it doesn't have anything inside of it. It's a hollow egg, but 24 chicken eggs would fit inside of this ostrich egg. So that's a pretty impressive sized bird. And like I said, Harriet and Carson, they're maybe 2 to 6 pounds about, as an ostrich being 300 pounds. That's a pretty big bird.
All right, awesome. A little bit disappointed you couldn't bring an ostrich into the room today, but we'll settle for the egg. We'll settle for the egg. Very cool. All right, well, let's take a swing through some of our classrooms because we still have some time. So Mr. Kantz in Weatherford, Texas, your microphone's on if you guys have another question.
How does the mother take care of the baby, of the owl?
For the owl, well, they sit on their eggs. So the mom is going to be sitting on the eggs. And typically with birds of prey, like our owls and like our Harris's hawk, the girls are actually a lot bigger than the males. And that is because they're the ones that are sitting on the eggs and they're the ones protecting the nest. So they tend to be the bigger and kind of more fierce animals because they're protecting, where the males a lot of times are smaller because they're out hunting for food. So typically they're going to be the ones out more hunting more, where the girls are going to sit and protect the nest. But they're going to mostly kind of protect their eggs for a while. But Carson, as a bird of prey, at about 3 months old, he's on his own. So at about 3 months, and definitely by 6 months, they're on their own. But they have to grow up really fast. And after they get big enough, mom kind of kicks them out, and then they're on their own.
All right, great question. Let's go back to our class in Kalispell, Montana. I can reach your microphone now, so I've turned it on for you. If you guys have another question, go ahead.
Do you have a question, Tosh?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
How?
Come on, Tosh. What's the question?
How much does an ostrich egg weigh?
I would probably say when it has a full yolk, when it's full, I'd probably say anywhere between about 2 pounds, maybe 3, depending on
How much 2 dozen eggs weigh?
You know, how much does 2 dozen eggs weigh, kind of a thing. Whenever you pick it up, but it'd probably be about 2 pounds. So you're picking up that egg to break for your omelet in the morning. You're not really struggling, but with 2 pounds, you kind of got to get a little bit more of a lift into that.
All right, fair enough. Back to Odessa, to Mrs. Rodriguez's group. Let me turn your microphone on. There we go.
Does Carson have stronger feet than Harriet?
So because of the size, I would say his feet probably, yes, are stronger because he is a bigger bird of prey. So his feet are definitely stronger than Harriet's. But Harriet could probably fly faster.
All right, let's go to Mrs. Caesar's class. Your microphone's on again.
My question is, can parrots talk without vocal cords?
I mean, they don't have the vocal cords as we do, but they are able to speak and, mimic noises. They can even mimic sounds of cars and other things. Telephones really well as well. But if they were somehow born without vocal cords, I wouldn't imagine so, because all the noises that animals and we make are all because of those. It's just basically those muscles in our throats that vibrate at certain wavelengths and frequencies that can make a noise happen. So if they somehow didn't have vocal cords, I would say no. But good thing that they do, because they are very entertaining for sure.
All right, let's swing back to Smooth Rock Falls. Mrs. Rasiga, your microphone is on.
How long can Tia's beak grow to?
How long is Tia's beak?
Yes.
Is it about 6 inches long?
Probably 6 or 7 inches.
It's probably about 6 to 7 inches long right now. That's probably about as long as it's going to get. So their beak size can probably range between about 6 to 8 inches, depending on the bird. So some of them can be smaller, some of them can be larger, but they are considered the largest toucan species in terms of the beak to body size ratio. So if we had a replica of a toucan skull, and you could see her skull would probably be about that big, and then her beak would stick out like that far. So it would make a lot different of a size comparison.
All right, Mrs. Damian. Damien Uncle's group sent another question in via the chat bar, and they're wondering about the glove that you use when you're handling the owl. Can you tell us a little bit about the glove?
Of course. So the glove is made out of leather. So we can actually get it for you real quick. So this leather is very dense, very thick material. So then when we put this on, that bird's talons, those nice sharp nails that they have, won't go through it. Even if, they squeeze really hard, it's a nice thick layer of leather. So I'm sure you guys, your parents had, your father has a nice leather wallet or something like that. So it's almost made out of the same material. It's overlapped several times so then they wouldn't be able to get through it. But again, they're not really purposefully trying to get through it, so we don't have to have it too thick. But it's just one of the tools that we use to make sure that they're safe and we're safe.
All right, perfect. And let's turn on Mrs. Walchuk's microphone one more time.
How do the toucans defend themselves?
So their beak isn't really good for defense. Mostly what they're going to do is they're going to hop around or try to move from different location to location. Or if they need to, they can peck at something with their beak, but it's not very strong. So it's not, it is kind of a resort that they can use to protect themselves. And then they can use that, or they're going to try to fly away or to hop to a different tree branch.
All right. We did have one more question that popped up via the chat sidebar, and it's from a class who's wondering about crows. They've heard that crows can be taught to talk a little bit. Is that true? Do you know?
So different types of crows or corvids can actually learn specific words. I've actually worked with a crow that knew how to say wow. So whenever he'd walk in a room, he'd go, wow. It was a really interesting thing. I know a whole bunch of other areas have magpie, crows, a whole bunch of different types of ravens. All of that are able to say other words, such as a parrot. Parrots are a little bit more showy, as crows are a little bit even more intelligent than a parrot or a macaw would be. They can actually learn, I think I've heard, up to about 60. I think the world record for a raven was about 70-something different words. So it's real impressive what birds can do.
Wow, very cool. So maybe just the last thing to think about before we sign off for today is about programs at the zoo. Do you have any breeding programs with the birds at the zoo?
We have rhinoceros hornbills that we have in a breeding program. We also have our southern ground hornbills that are part of a breeding program. We have so many different species of birds. I couldn't even tell you the number of species. I know we have Luzon's bleeding heart doves as another part of our species survival program. We have screaming crested screamers. We have our big dinosaur birds.
Cassowaries.
Cassowaries, thank you. We have cassowaries. They're really huge birds. They look kind of like dinosaurs. They're also in a breeding program.
Crane.
Yeah.
Crane. So we have a whole bunch of different birds and different types of breeding programs. So, I mean, we always post whenever we have some babies born and all of that. So, if you guys check us out on Facebook and Instagram, all those kind of outlets, you'll make sure that you kind of keep up to date. We like to post whenever we have any form of animal born, but all the birds will also be up there. So if you guys keep looking at that, you'll definitely see all the birds that we'll have.
And if you ever wanted to learn more about our zoo, we have an app, the Virginia Zoo app. And if you look at that app, there's information about all the different species of animals. So you can actually click on the different animals so it can tell you all the information about them as well.
All right. Awesome. Well, Steph and Matt, thank you so much for taking some time and bringing some friends with us to hang out today. They truly were beautiful birds. And it's great to be able to see them, learn about them, and then, of course, hear about programs at the zoo where, a lot of people always think of zoos as great places to come and see animals, but there's a lot of really good conservation work that takes place at zoos. So very cool to hear about some of that work. And of course, to our classrooms, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Your questions were great as always. And we can't wait for our next trip back to the Virginia Zoo.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Well, the last thing we'll do, I'm going to turn all the microphones on. Boys and girls, if you want to get nice and loud, say goodbye and thank you, then we'll sign off for today. So here we go. All right. Great job with that, as always. Thank you, everybody. We look forward to our next virtual field trip.
All right,
See you later.
you.
Bye, guys. Bye.